Hello, everyone. Good morning, good evening, wherever you're calling in from. Thank you for joining this session today. I'm very excited to have you here and to have your career champions here today. My name is Tina Hu. I'm the full-time MBA manager at UBC Sauder Recruitment Admissions. So we'll start this session, the first session with Paul Cubbon here today. I would like to acknowledge that UBC's Vancouver Point Grey campus is situated on the traditional, ancestral, and ceded territory of the Musqueam people. We would also like to acknowledge that you are joining us today from many places, near and far, and acknowledge that the traditional owners and caretakers of those lands. In the room today, right now, we have Paul Cubbon, our Assistant Dean Innovation. Welcome, Paul, today. And at 5:30, we'll be joined by DJ Miller, our lecturer, Marketing and Behavioral Science Division. And at 6 o'clock, we'll welcome Tim Silk, Associate Professor. And finally, at 6:30, we'll welcome Glenn Donaldson, Associate Professor, Finance Division. So I will pass the floor to Paul now, and Paul's yours now. I will be sharing your presentation shortly right now.
Sure. Thanks very much, Tina, and thanks everybody for being here today from wherever you're coming in from. It's really kind of a pleasure and a privilege to be with you. As you heard, my name's Paul Cubbon. You'll find that I'm one of about 50% of the people in Vancouver who are immigrants, right? If you're picking up on accents, mine is an English accent, but I've been in Vancouver for over 25 years. And so it's a wonderful place with, I think in my undergrad courses, I have people from over 90 countries. So it's a fantastic place to come, and we look forward to welcoming many of you this September in our programs. So briefly, I was in industry for about 15 years. First of all, at advertising agency side, and then client side with Unilever and consumer packaged goods. But I've been at UBC now for some 20 years. So I'm what you would call an applied or industry-facing professor. I look after the innovation and entrepreneurship track, and I also lead a program called Creative Destruction Lab, which I'll touch on very briefly. So over the next 24 minutes, I'm going to speak for about 10. Right? These slides you'll see are recorded. I'm going to go through them fairly quickly. And then the rest of the time will be for Q&A. You can either use the Q&A kind of section down below, or if you're feeling bold and brave, you can I think Tina, can people put their mic on and speak or not? They can. Yes.
I believe they can if we can mute them.
All right. Anyway. The people's voices, but anyway, we'll work that out. But one way or another, we'll get your questions, and maybe from your own voice. So the innovation and entrepreneurship track is one of the 4 tracks. You'll hear from my colleagues later, as you saw. And I helped set this up about 10 years ago, largely in response to 2 voices. One was the voice of students and prospective students like yourself, and the other was from employers in industry who said, we want students who have got an innovation and entrepreneurship mindset. Next slide, please. As we go through this, don't worry too much about the numbers, but there are a series of courses in the innovation and entrepreneurship track, and the big one there, kind of on the second line, period 3 and period 4, which would be your January through April, is something called technology entrepreneurship. It's a double course. Half the students in this course are grad students from engineering or other science and technology disciplines, and half of them are half of your MBAs, many of whom have got a STEM undergrad. And it's an experiential course that involves you in trying to design and build your own company. And it's really the kind of the cornerstone of this track. You'll see there's another required course there in entrepreneurial finance. Some people who are entrepreneurial say they don't like finance and they don't like numbers. Don't try and build a business if you can't work through the numbers and the money. We'll try and make that kind of easier for you. And then what you'll see is in the second from bottom bullet, you get to choose at least one kind of additional module from a list of recommended electives. And people might say, wow, that's not many choices. But you also, the bottom bullet, get to choose another 10 general electives and can add more courses. So what you'll hear from, not just from me, but from DJ and Tim and Glenn, is consistently, we're all going to tell you that you can make your own choices on courses. A lot of these courses, they can be cross-referenced across different tracks. So a lot of picking a track is where is your interest and how do you want to build your career narrative for after you leave the MBA? Now that may seem crazy for you to be thinking about leaving before you've started, but most people that I've met over the decades that are doing an MBA, you're career switchers, right? You're coming here having already been successful in the first stage of your career, and you're looking to gather skills, build a network, and move into a different kind of direction in your career. So if you're career switchers, then you're trying to build that narrative. So next slide, please. So I won't go down these in detail. This is a subset of the courses, right? And again, ignore the numbers. You don't need to know about those now, but these are some of the recommended electives. And as you go down them, you'll see kind of a range of the sorts of topics that we kind of cover. Some of these overlap with some of the other tracks. So I won't go into the finance ones in detail, Glenn will, or into the AI commercialization one because DJ will, but there's deliberately some overlap. What I will touch on briefly is this Creative Destruction Lab course that runs in the last term of the MBA. For those who don't know about Creative Destruction Lab, you'll find it runs across 10 universities globally. And what we do is we plug the MBAs in the course into working directly with deep technology startup ventures. And so your assignments are not theoretical. They're actually, if you're being asked to prepare a financing investment deck to raise money, you're doing it for a company. And if you do a good job, they use it to go and raise the money. And so it really is kind of being more than a fly on the wall, kind of embedded in the companies, working with them. And a number of our students ending at the end of the program end up going to work for one of those companies. Next, please. Don't try and read the small print on this here, but what I want to try and do is give you this idea of entrepreneurial careers. I talked to you about kind of using the MBA right from the beginning to think about a career track and then where you're going to go to. Your MBA is a staging point on the journey. And so a lot of people think about being an entrepreneur, like the top left-hand circle, being the founder of a startup. So a lot of people disqualify themselves. They say, I couldn't possibly be Steve Jobs or Mark Zuckerberg. You might not want to be either, or Elon Musk or any of those other people, mad, crazy, whatever, right? But some of you will be founders of startups, but many entrepreneurs join early stage companies, top right-hand side, or many others, and this was my background in industry, that you're intrapreneurs or corporate innovators. And increasingly, we've found that we've got kind of both growth companies and established companies asking us for our entrepreneurial students who have innovative abilities to think and operate. And so what's the shared skill set? So you don't have to try and look at the small print, look on the right-hand side. These are some of the things that our employers care about. And it's why the innovation and entrepreneurship track focuses so much on experiential interdisciplinary learning. Next slide, please. So I'm going to go real quickly now through, here are some examples of people who've gone through the track in the past or have done some of these key courses like technology entrepreneurship. This was a heads-up display goggle, very innovative at the time to support sport, especially snow sports to start with. It was founded in the technology entrepreneurship course in 2007. It was sold to Intel in 2015. The 3 MBAs who are involved in it all now created and run at least one more other company. And again, you can look at the names later. You can go and see what they're doing, what these companies are. But what it shows you is there's a pathway here, right? And it's not just to one thing, it's to several things. Next, please. Here's an example of somebody else, Ryan. He's actually just stepped down from being the CEO, but he's still a board member. And this is a legal services SaaS company, been very successful, employs about 800 people, mainly in Vancouver, but also some in the States and some in Europe. And again, you can see it's 14 years, classic overnight success, but kind of started very much as a basis of being kind of in the courses here. Next, please. This one, oh, we've lost, maybe just click one more. Yeah, sorry, Kerry, I knew Kerry was there somewhere. Again, you can have a look at this company, HeadCheck Health, a kind of smaller company, but very much focused on dealing with kind of concussion diagnosis and treatment. Kind of a lot of people very motivated kind of by kind of wellness or kind of human health and care. Next, please. You can see here, this is an intrapreneur example. Kind of Thomas initially started working for a startup company, Precision Nanosystems, that's now done really quite well, and then has gone on to found 2 companies of his own. But when he was in the MBA program, he told me he didn't think he would ever be able to found a company, and he wanted to work for other people. And I'm just trying to give you permission to know that you don't have to do everything immediately, and the skill set you develop gives you flexibility. Next, please. So I deliberately put these up so you're tempted to go and look at some of these other names. These are some of the more recent grads. They're doing interesting things. I'm not going to go through all of them through dint of time, but you'll see that some of them are founders, some of them have joined early stage startups, some of them are in other different areas. They've all come from different parts of the world. And yes, I know they're all male. And so let me go to the next slide, please. So Vivian, kind of, one of my favorite innovators, kind of corporate innovator, after kind of graduating from us, she was really interested in entrepreneurship, but she went to join SAP, and she's done a whole series of really interesting roles, working on global files, but out of Vancouver. And so you can see she kind of self-proclaims to be the resident nerd at SAP. So next, please. So one of the big things I'd say, regardless of what track you choose, being a novice in anything is really overrated. It's exciting for a beginning, but you feel clumsy and you're not very effective. And so what we do here is we're very much about being experiential and helping you to, if I can have the next, just click please, the next thing will pop up. Tom Kelly of IDEO said, fail faster to succeed sooner. We try to make the MBA a place for you to fail safely. I don't mean fail your courses and fail the grades, but to do things where if you try and teach your niece or nephew to ride a bike for the first time, right? They'll fall off and graze their knees. We're there to pick you up so that you can really ride fast out as you graduate. All right, next, please. So I deliberately put this up at the end again, just to remind you that you don't have to be a hero founder. The skill set that we'll try and help you develop is actually useful for a really flexible approach. But actually, you get a lot of flexibility within the choice of courses that you can do while you're here. And whether you pick the innovation and entrepreneurship track or one of the other tracks, next slide, please. What you will see is there's some deliberate overlap here. Although you take 5 electives for your track, you get to take an additional 10 electives. So if you're in the IE track, right, you may take a couple of courses from each of the other tracks, or you might say, actually, I want to do a whole bunch of stuff in finance because I want to be a strong financial innovator. And so ultimately it's about choices. And I know, because I know my colleagues well, as you talk later to DJ and to Tim and to Glenn, they will also tell you it's about choices. And the only problem you've got is too many good options, right? But there are lots of positive choices you can make. So I'm going to pause there. That's my 10 minutes. And we've got about 12 or 13 minutes for questions. And so we can stop screen sharing and go to questions, Tina.
Yeah, and thanks so much for your presentation, Paul. That's very exciting information you have shared with our audience today. So I'm going to open up the Q&A. Are we able to mute somebody to ask the question?
Yeah, if anybody wants to jump in, they can, or you can type it into at the moment, I don't see any open questions in Q&A, but if there's any, then I'll look at them and I'll try and answer them. By the way, if you're going to be really shy in class, I will call on you.
Yeah, anyone please put your question in the chat box. And I have a question, Paul, if just waiting for someone to type in their questions. So out of the, I know the career tracks is so interconnected in a way, and what kind of jobs, you share some jobs, and what kind of job outlooks that the student can expect out of this track?
I'll do that, and then I'll get to the first question I can see up there. But yeah, so Tina, in terms of jobs, as I say, the majority of MBAs that I've seen over, well, more than 20 years now, some students come into the MBA saying, I hit a ceiling in my career. I was a really good, a kind of software engineer, but I was told I can't advance to a more senior management and leadership position if I don't fill in some skills. And so they know that they're coming to build some skills, but they're almost certainly not going to go back to the same company, maybe not even to the same city or country. And so, as I say, the MBA is really a stepping stone to going and doing something else. So I'd say in the innovation entrepreneurship track, the three broad areas I see, there are a lot of people think they're going to start a company when they graduate, but not many do, right? I think in part it's because after a year and a half in school, people are kind of saying, hey, I need to get earning again, the risk involved in starting a company. So I'd say a few start companies straight out of the gate, and that's great. If I look after 5 years, a lot of people have done one thing kind of salaried, and then they've gone and started a company, right? And they say, I was inspired to do it because of what I learned, or I met the key people at the MBA. So of the people that are going out and doing salaried jobs, the reason I showed those three overlapping circles and said this is the skill set people care about is we have companies as diverse as Amazon and McKinsey and Google that say, we want your entrepreneurial thinkers. And when I ask them what they mean, they say, people who can work with limited resources rapidly to scope a problem and then connect with other people that don't report to them to actually run rapid tests or experiments to either validate something and get traction or not. So that's in the larger company setup. And then I'd say it depends a lot after that where people choose to want to stay. A lot of people, having come to Vancouver, because it's beautiful, they stay, they want to stay. And I'd say there's a really thriving startup community here. And when we say startup, I'm not talking about the two-person company, there's lots of those, but if you want someone to pay you a salary, I'm talking about the companies that are going from kind of 50 through 100 through 200 people. So the opportunity is often to be one of the first business-facing people in a technical company. A lot of medical device companies here, a lot of kind of companies in various areas of SaaS, like I showed you with Clio. So basically a wide range. Let me look at the questions which are in here. What kinds of interesting entrepreneurship projects have students done in the past? Okay, so two examples I'll give you is one is one of the four kind of names that I put up without going into the detail was somebody called Jason Sparrow. And the team there of 5 students in tech entrepreneurship, 3 of them MBAs and 2 of them were PhDs in biosciences. And what they're doing now is they're about the 3rd year into a company called Barrelwise. And they started it in the class. And what they did was that the science students in the class had particular insight into testing liquids for various kind of quality. And what they're doing is they're trying to reinvent the processes for quality control in wineries. So they've got a large number of wineries at the moment. Instead of, even in large wineries today, basically the cellar master has to take barrels down one at a time and sample them kind of manually, and there's contamination and so on. So what they've done is they designed a device which allows for the continual monitoring of data on wine quality while it's in the barrel without all the manual work involved. So that's pretty interesting, I think. There's one here from Raghav Bansal. Welcome, Raghav. Canadian geography, as well as quite a few career options, are very new for many of us. Are there any personalized counseling sessions for the in-depth options available? I'm not sure about personal counseling. I mean, I guess the best thing is to follow up, Tina, with you and your team. And then if there are specific questions, many of them you're very, very capable to answer. And if there's something specific, you can always pass it on to one of us. But geography would take us to the end of the 2 hours. But yes, it's an exciting geography. Vancouver is a place where you can see the snow, but you don't have to live in it. So yeah, good.
I
Next
think
one
someone's asking about the creative destruction lab. So.
Are they? Okay, I don't see that.
Oh, I'm saying the chat.
Oh yeah, sorry, on chat. Okay, yeah, okay. So right, we got it in 2 places, haven't we? That's fine. Okay, so where's the question on CDR? Okay, could you talk more about the creative destruction lab? Sure. Yeah, I see that from RC. So RC, thank you. So creative destruction lab. a colleague of mine at the University of Toronto, but who is a PhD grad from the Soda School of Business, Ajay Agrawal, about 10 years ago, he basically identified a gap in the startup space for commercializing deep technology out of university labs. And so he designed this program, Creative Destruction Lab, and you can go on creativedestructionlab.com, you can go on the website, but I partnered with him to be the first partner site to expand that kind of to Vancouver. So we've been going 6 years now, and you'll see that it's actually in 10 universities now, including Oxford and Paris and so on. And so we are the host university at UBC and at SORDA specifically, and we run 3 streams here for ventures, and each stream has about 20 companies in. So we take about 20 startup companies a year through, and these are companies that have got deep technology, but they are still not commercial companies. They're nearly all pre-revenue, and we help to de-risk them, right? And the students are involved in that de-risking process. So we're trying to help set direction, trajectory, and momentum, and to facilitate their initial funding round. So we see about 60 companies a year. So we've had about 250 companies come through. We'll look at about 5,000 to get to the 250. And about half of those we've facilitated financing for. A typical financing round that we facilitate is between $1 and $2 million. So basically, you're involved in real life de-risking of science ventures because you're plugged in to work with one or more of the companies over the duration of the course. So that's what I would say it's about. And it's kind of making a fundamental difference, I think, to students being able to go out and say, I know how to do this because when you go to apply for a job, you're able to demonstrate you just work with 2 or 3 companies on real stuff. Which other questions do you want me to answer? There's lots coming now. It's always the way, isn't it? There's none, and then there's a lot.
You're such a popular, Paul. You have so many questions.
Well, let me have a look. So I'm just going to go down. I'm going to go down real quickly through Q&A and then chat. So Q&A. Sure. Pragya says someone wants to set a startup apart from skill set development. What can I expect? Mentorship, etc. Yeah, look, it's quite a multifaceted question. Look, what I would say is what you do in class can lead to actually starting a company. But a lot of the time, I think what you do is get back to this learn, fail fast, fail forward to learn to be successful sooner. Right? I'd worry less about starting a venture while you're in class. You're doing five courses at a time. To start a venture successfully, you're going to focus on it full time and then more. And so I think a lot of it is opportunities to practice with and find out what you like about different combinations of people, where your gaps are, so that then either in the summer and instead of doing an internship, you could start your project, or as you graduate. I'm not going to answer the question about the international student. Sorry. International students, is it hard for international students to establish a startup company? Not really. We have that lots. No harder than it is for a domestic student. In fact, I'd say international students are often got more grit because they're already kind of putting themselves in an area of not being as comfortable. I'm interested in up to 3 of the 4 career tracks. This is Kayode Alajebi. Would it be possible to select relevant courses across the tracks? Yeah, exactly. I mean, look, ultimately, many students say, I'd like to do even more courses. As long as your grades are good, in some of the later periods, you can overload by 1 course or 2 courses. And I would say that most of the students, although you're anchoring in one track, will do some courses from other tracks. But how you weight that will be up to you, right? And as I say, I would be thinking about what's the narrative you want to tell a potential employer later about you. Are you going to anchor it more around technology, or are you going to anchor it more around marketing, or what might it be? Okay. I'm going to go to Caroline Young. How does Creative Destruction Lab support students? Could you describe what you mean by de-risking? The way it supports students is you're actually in a course with a professor as you normally would be, but actually your lessons wouldn't be theoretical. They would be the professor debriefing and leading a discussion on what all of you collectively have watched as you've seen expert mentors and investors talking around what the risks or the priority decisions should be for a venture. So the focus of CDL is actually on what are the 3 things that company should do over the next 8 weeks as sprint milestones, at the exception of everything else. Most people fail in startup mode, or actually in life, because they're trying to do too many things and they don't do anything well. So this is about focus. Just so anonymous, all successful examples of projects you showed during your presentations are tech startups. Do you have any successful startups that are not tech? Yeah, I do actually. I have a bias towards the tech startups because I'm looking for leveraging big impact out of university research and plugging business students into that. But there's a company called Susgrainable. Yeah, it sounds like sustainable, except instead of tain, it's grain, right? And this came out of our tech entrepreneurship course, but it's not a tech course. They just use the skill set. And Mark, who's the founder of this, he was looking into the waste product that came out of the brewing process and to see whether it could be recycled or upcycled into food products. And he now runs this company, Susgrainable, where they use the byproducts that would normally have been thrown away into new foods for kind of cake and oatmeal mixes. So that's not very technical, but he was motivated by that, and for sure there are plenty the same skill set. We're at time, are we?
Yes, we are at 5:30, so time is short.
Tina, what I would say just before I
Sure.
go then is for any of the questions I'm not answered, if you or one of your team members want to capture them in writing and just kind of send them to me, yes. I'll provide an answer to each of them, and you can put it onto the end of the thing. So for anybody whose question we didn't get to, I'll do my best to give you a 1-line answer. After that, Tina and her team can maybe direct you to other resources.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Paul. And thanks so much for you being here today and to present excellent information to our audience. So, well, thank you, Paul, and I'll let you go. And thanks for the audience engagement. Welcome, DJ, next.